Well, hello and welcome to the Terri Cole Show. If you do not know me, maybe you're new to this crew, my name is Terri Cole. I'm a licensed psychotherapist. I'm a relationship expert, the founder of Boundary Bootcamp, Real Love Revolution, and I'm also an author, and I have a book coming out in April called Boundary Boss, The Essential Guide to Talk True, Be Seen, and Finally Live Free. Welcome to the show. I am so happy that you are here. So, what we're talking about on this episode is how you can stop exploding and or running away or going silent when you are interacting in your relationships. How do you do that? You do it with self-regulation. So, let's start with, think about the way when you're having a problem with someone. How do you get, if someone says something that makes you mad, how do you respond or react? Do you explode? Do you yell? Do you go silent? Do you give them the silent treatment, right? Do you just, you're like a stone wall, you're not talking to them anymore? That is a problem with self-regulation. So when you don't have self-regulation, you do not have a good ability to contain your own feelings. So it's almost like when we have buttons that trigger us. Imagine that when you have poor self-regulation, which many people do, because a lot of people don't even know this concept. It's like you're walking around with all of those buttons out. So almost anyone can just punch a button and you react as opposed to responding. So, there are things that you can do about it. So let's just start with, and I've also created a guide for you, so don't sweat it. It's just go to terricole.com/270, because this is the 270th episode of the Terri Cole Show. If you can believe it, it's a true story. So why are we like this? Why is it difficult for us to self-regulate? So many reasons. And what I'm giving you in the little downloadable guide, there'll be questions that you can answer so you can understand, why do you react this way when you feel attacked? And how do you react? So there'll be questions so that you can basically look at, how are you responding or reacting right now when you get into an argument with someone or when you get into a conflict with someone? Do you find that you're doing the same thing? You will react this way, the other person will react this way, someone storms out, and nothing seems to get resolved. Or maybe you have a cycle, then someone comes back, and then you kind of figure it out. But here's the thing. If you're not ever getting to your ability to slow down in that moment, to respond, because you've learned how to become a container for your own feelings. So visualize it like when you have poor self-regulation, it's like you almost have holes, like there's no ability to become a safe container for yourself. Everything is going outwards. You are discharging those emotions and those feelings outward. A lot of times we just want the interaction to stop, but think about how that feels when you are not in control of yourself. And I'm not talking about suppressing your emotions or the way you feel. And I'm not saying if you have poor self-regulation that means that what the other person is doing is okay. It's not about any of that. This is about going through life. Instead of feeling like you're this teeny little boat and this huge wave of emotion is like a massive storm that's jerking you around. When you learn how to self-regulate, when you have a deeper understanding of yourself and why you react the way that you do, you realize that all along you are the storm. You are the storm. And that little boat can be your emotions and the way that you manage, process, honor, handle, and eventually communicate. That you have the power to do it in a way that honors you, that honors your relationships. So let's talk about how can we start? The top thing that I think is super important with this concept is really understanding what you're feeling. A lot of times we will be, enraged, and we don't really know that underneath that feeling, the primary feeling and the way we're expressing it is rage or anger. But if you really looked, you would see that underneath that, you actually feel sad, hurt, afraid. And these are emotions that we like less to a degree because they are more scary than an emotion like anger. So when you can identify what you're actually feeling, and I'll help you with some questions, and then you have to look at what did you see? So those of you who are familiar with my work know that I always talk about downloaded blueprints. And so you have a downloaded conflict blueprint. You do. And that is something that I'll give you a couple of questions that you can answer that will help you understand that if this was modeled behavior, if in the home that you grew up in, you saw someone saying something and the other person being very defensive and then very angry back, and you saw this back and forth, that is a model of behavior. What you learned as a kid is, oh, this is how you do it. This is how grown-ups are in relationships. So I'll give you a couple of questions that you can answer, like, how did the impactors in my life, many of you know, I call your caregivers, whoever they may have been, impactors, because it could be a foster mom. It could have been your grandmother who raised you. It could have been an aunt. And maybe it was a single parent home, or maybe you had parents, but I don't think that we can assume that parents is accurate. So every time I say impactor, you know that I'm talking about the adults in your life when you were a child. How did they handle problems? How did they interact? Did they have impulse control issues? Did they have self-regulation issues? Because sometimes this is a learned behavior as well. So that's another thing that we're going to look at. We need to be able to change. And when you are staying in a pattern of behavior that is absolutely not, it is not giving you what you want in life. It is not in your best and your highest good. It is not the best thing for your relationships. What ends up happening is that life feels a little like, it's a little hollow. It's not that satisfying because your real emotions, your true emotions, are not being expressed and honored. So one major key in this process of having better self-regulation is understanding what you're doing when you are being unself-regulated. Does that make sense? Like, what are you doing instead of slowing down and looking in? I did an Instagram live a couple of weeks ago with a friend of mine who's a therapist. Her name is Terri. She's great on Instagram. She is at New York Therapist, like NY Therapist. And I'll put her info because she's someone that if you're interested in the stuff that I do, I bet you would really like the stuff that she does as well. She's amazing. So what do we do when we're not self-regulating very well? Well, we get into fight or flight, right? So this is the built-in response system when we feel threatened. Well, some people just immediately want to punch you in the face. Other people will freeze. Other people play dead. Other people run away, right? This is what happens naturally. So we need to be aware of these things because any of those things don't necessarily, if you're not in mortal danger, I mean, they're certainly appropriate if you are, but if you aren't, this is not a good problem-solving mechanism. So how do you know that? Well, according to Terri, when we were in our Instagram Live, you will attack, you will blame, you will name call, you will analyze, you will yell, you will pursue, right? Maybe the other person is moving back and being like, hey, this is getting too heated, and you won't let it go, you keep going. Or maybe you're the person who is going to be withdrawn. You're going to isolate yourself away from that person. After the experience, you might go to numb your feelings, deny. You will be very defensive. You might defend what you did and the choices. You might want to avoid the conversation altogether. These are all things that are patterns when we're having difficulty with self-regulating, but the patterns themselves are super unsatisfying and unhealthy. So We don't want to do those patterns. I think if you download the guide that I created for you, some questions, it's like a step-by-step way of having you understand how good or not good your self-regulation is. That is what that guide will help you figure out. And how are you expressing it when you are acting in this automatic or unconscious way? Are you more of a withdrawer? Are you more of an attacker? And that is the beginning of things changing for you. So to get that guide, all you have to do is go to terricole.com/270, because that is this episode of The Terri Cole Show, for a more extended conversation on self-regulation, how to stop fighting and running away, fighting or running away, really. You can listen to the podcast, because the podcast usually is about twice as long as this YouTube video. It's just The Terri Cole Show on iTunes. You know where it is. And hey, if this show added value to your life, because that's really all I want to do, please share it on your social media platforms. You guys know that I hang out mostly on Instagram, so add it to your story. I will repost it. It makes me so happy. Drop your comments right here, because you know I love to hear from you. I respond to everyone and everything that goes on right here on YouTube. And I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't wait to get into this conversation with you. I hope that it really provokes some thought for you. And as always, take care of you.